Well, hello, everyone. This is Wilson Cole, president of Adams, Evans, and Ross, Backdoor Hires, and ELOC Global Solutions. And certainly some bizarre times that we're living through. And I am joined on this call by one of my all-time mentors and just a brilliant, brilliant guy, Gordon Bizar. Now, to give you, and Gordon, thank you for joining me on this call at such quick notice.
Well, first of all, Wilson, thank you for the compliment. And it's my pleasure to be here. And likewise, the timing is important because there's so much confusion in the marketplace right now because of the pandemic. And this is a time of really great opportunity for businesses if they know how to ferret out those opportunities. So this is what I hope we'll be able to cover for a few minutes today.
Well, and I do want to cover that because I know you have some amazing insight. And one thing I want to share with everybody, because I know Gordon's going to be too modest, but, you know, first and foremost, Gordon and I have known each other and worked together on different projects through the years, probably at least a decade and a half. I know back during the Great Recession, we had worked on Relight America. And Gordon has bought and sold many businesses. He has a private equity firm out in California. Brilliant guy. He's got a degree in economics, finance, physics, and he is chairman of Bizar Financing and has also sat on other boards as well, and has bought or has raised over $267 million. He's had a large loan of $500 million from Lehman Brothers way back when they were acquiring some different different companies that he had targeted. And so Gordon has insight into so many different industries at so much scale. And he also has a wealth of experience because he has seen the different cycles over the years. And so whenever I run into an insecure situation that we all are running into, and this may resemble in some ways 2001, it may resemble other issues, but I always want to go back to my mentors and pick their brain. And Gordon was already about 2 steps ahead of me, and we'll share some of that information towards the end of the call on some of the things that you guys can do. But I wanted to make Gordon's wealth of knowledge available to our staffing and recruiting market. So with that being said, Gordon, I'm going to let you take over and just kind of walk us through. I mean, of course, this is a unique situation. In my opinion, we're going to have a 1-2 punch. We're going to have the pandemic. Then we're going to have the repercussions of the slowdown of the economy. How do you see this playing out? And what are the strategies that you're utilizing with your companies and with your ventures?
Well, first of all, thank you for that great introduction. Now, all I have to do is live up to it. And I'll do my very, very best. One of the benefits of being 76 years old is I've had 55 years of actual business experience, living through 8 different paradigm-changing crises in business. And after a while, and by the way, I thrived through all of them. And the key to that was the ability to see the patterns that exist in almost every one of these crises. And most of them are tied more to human behavior than they are to the actual physical crisis itself. In other words, it's what happens within the framework of human behavior that either makes it a crisis or an opportunity. And learning to ferret out those differences is what enables you to pick the right pathway forward. Having said that, the thing that is driving the crisis right now is definitely uncertainty, and people in times of uncertainty allow their fear level to rise substantially. And the only reason my fear level isn't off the charts on this one is because I have a framework to put it in from all the past experiences that I've had. But the fear level right now is that nobody knows what's happening in the economy. People have lost in the market almost a third of their wealth in the last week or so. People who have businesses are conserving cash. So it means, interestingly enough, they're not paying their bills. And they're holding back on anything that isn't existential to be paid. This is common. It happens every time there's a financial crisis. So nothing new there. It's just that it's probably a little more accentuated this time. But here's one of the key things driving the difference. Government policy has to balance two things right now. It has to balance the health and welfare of people, and it has to balance the elasticity and substance of the economy itself. And the two of them have different needs right now. The need for preserving health and welfare of people determines on flattening out the curve. In other words, the idea that you have to minimize people's interaction with each other, do all the things that government's doing right now to minimize the speed at which the viral attack occurs on people, so that the health systems of the country aren't overwhelmed. Now, when you flatten out the curve, what that means is that you cancel out all the things that bring people together, which is a large part of what drives the economy. People now look at the hotel industry is shut down, the airline industry is virtually shut down, anybody who's planned a meeting of any kind is basically shut down. Don't even think about going to a bar or a restaurant. And so there are certain industries that have been just absolutely shut down. And that in itself creates dislocation to the economy. But the goal there, remember, the government goal is to keep people out of close touch with each other so that the spread level and speed is reduced, and that flattens out the curve. So instead of seeing this curve of a rapid increase in the number of people that have it, which then quickly overwhelms the healthcare system, the curve gets flattened out, but it also means it gets lengthened. In other words, nothing that's being done is going to stop people from getting it. It's going to stop the speed at which they're going to get it. And the hope is that they can have enough healthcare facilities now with the curve spread out to handle all the needs of everybody, and hopefully to find drugs and other means of preventing and ameliorating the height of the symptoms, and all of which is true and good for health. But it's terrible for business. Why? Because the ideal business situation would be to let everybody get it, get over with it, in a month or two, okay, and get everybody back to business without a big dislocation in the economy. So that's not going to happen, okay? So the question is, what is going to happen for business? And what is going to happen for business is the economy is basically going to start to shut down. There's going to be a tremendous amount of dislocation. Small businesses are in danger that if the downturn lasts too long for them, they'll fail. And once businesses fail, it's like Humpty Dumpty, okay? When it falls off the wall, you can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again, okay? Because all of that complex mechanisms that were running a business and all the relationships and interactions of people, that's gone. And so you even if you have the physical building that the business operated in, you can't just snap your fingers and have the business snap back together. It's not going to happen. The people maybe have gone off in different directions. The owner's capital is gone, so he can't deal with the issues of capitalizing his business properly because his capital just got wiped out. So there's a certain point at which the certain businesses are going to snap. And this is as sure as night follows day. And the government might say, well, we're going to have all of these plans to subsidize and payroll, and we're going to help small businesses. But guess what? That's all loans, okay? They're not going to give small business money. So you and I also know that businesses tend to operate on fairly narrow margins. They live week to week, month to month, and they don't have big reserves. And so that once that snap happens, or that the point at which that snap happens, the government isn't going to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. So if you kind of have that as a sense of perspective, then a large part of this is going to be determined by how long the current dislocation lasts. If it lasts a few weeks, well, the majority of businesses will survive that. But if it lasts for 3 months or 6 months, now you're starting to push a whole different level of business failure. And with the idea that it can't be put back together again, that's going to affect the speed and the intensity with which the economy is able to recover. And remember, small business, remember, they still employ 70 or 80% of the population here in the United States, the workforce. So the ability to snap back to employment is really dependent upon the future health of small business. The hope is by people in power, whether they're the media, well, first of all, the media has a different agenda. I'll get to them in a minute. But the people in power are hopeful that what you're going to see is a V-shaped situation. In other words, tremendous downturn, first leg of the V, and then everything will come back together again. The health part of the crisis will be over. They can remove all of these restrictions on all of these different industries and all that, and that what they're hoping for is a snapback, which is the other side of the V back up. And like I said, if it's short enough, that's what'll happen. But if it's long enough, the V will start to turn into a U. And by a U, I don't mean that there's no snap back up, that the backup will happen gradually. And the longer it goes on, the more elastic that U is going to become in terms of that back end comeback. Okay. Now, if you're in business, understanding those basic principles can enable you to anticipate what's going to happen. And if you're following the progress of everything, you can begin to time yourself to do the right thing at the right time. So the question I always get asked is, well, where's the opportunity in all this, Gordon?
Yeah, I was actually, up until this point, I was feeling better before you and I talked. So I know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. But and that's kind of my question is, how do the industries and these business owners know, when to hold on and when to gas and brake? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say there's a magic answer to that, but there's not. The best you can do is monitor the situation closely and know what you're looking for. And we'll talk about this more later, but one of the things that we've done here at our organization is in recognizing that we're all in this together. There's no point in anybody hoarding information because you can't benefit just by yourself. You've got to really help the bigger body to make it through this and to make it through in a productive way. And because if we don't all work together on it, none of us can win. Okay, so that's the first observation. So what we've done is we've taken in our programs one of our webinar series that are normally just for our members, and we're opening it up to the public, and the public meaning other business people. And I've already given you by the chat box, by the way, the registration information so that people can come in and register. There's no cost for this. In the past, we charged our members, but we're opening it up to everybody without cost because we're all, like I said, we're all in it together. We got to figure it out. So we're dividing our groups up into teams, industry by industry, and we're creating a way to monitor everything that's going on in all the key industries that can tell us what's going on and how to time the current situations. Now, you're not going to find this on the news. You're not going to find this in government reports because nobody's thinking like this right now. And the public is just, the media's agenda right now is how do they get the most eyeballs on their news broadcasts?
You broke up on that last part, Gordon. The media's goal is to do what?
Well, the media's agenda is to get the most eyeballs and ears on their media. Yes. And that means promoting fear, providing information, because they're still good at that, but they're still fear-based. They're still working on everybody's fear of the situation. So we don't want to work on people's fears in business, because in business, it really depends on optimism. It depends on our ability to see the opportunities in the future and then seize them. So our whole orientation is going to be very different. So we're going to be taking all of these new registrants into our program, and we're going to be helping identify them by industry. We're going to break up those that are anxious to do this or want to do this into teams. We're going to mentor them through the research process they'll need to undergo to understand fully what's going on in their industries, and so that they will have a keen ear to the ground on helping everyone identify the right timing. And there are certain industries that are like canaries, right? They're in the mines. You know, they take the
Yep.
canary down there to see if the canary died, they knew there was a little too much gas in the tunnel, right?
Well,
So there are certain industries that are like bellwether industries. You can tell. I'll give you one, for example. We have one of our members that's in metal finishing. And what they do is they see every manufacturer that manufactures anything where there needs to be a finish on any metal item. And they can tell by their orders, they can tell by their accounts receivable aging. They can tell with a little bit of guidance exactly what's going on in the economy at the manufacturing level. They know by their orders and by the way they're getting paid how to time that industry. So there's a key industry that can help us to time what's really happening in terms of business recovery and what's happening with the consumer. And there are other industries as well. So now the question is, where are we going to have a V? Are we going to have a relatively quick U? Are we going to have a prolongated U recovery? Those three things, those three realities are going to dictate what the opportunities are for the future and when to execute them. The next thing we want to do is we want to be sure that everybody that we work with will have access to a pool of money that will be available to them when that V hits or shortly before the V or U hits. And we're going to be training everyone that's with us how to take advantage of what's going to go on as an opportunity. Here's another reality of what's true in the marketplace, Wilson. That's an important factor that exists today, that if you don't pay attention to it, you can't make the right calls. And that is the retirement of the baby boom generation.
mm-hmm.
You have a tremendous number of baby boom business owners that for some time now have been selling their businesses or closing them down or doing any one of a number of different exit strategies because they want to retire. You know, the baby boom right now is 60 to 75. Mm-hmm. That's the age of the baby boom. So business owners tend to retire later than employees. Mm-hmm. So they typically are right in the height right now of planning their exits, of looking at selling off their companies. That baby boom business owner has facing two choices right now. Does he ride out the storm and then reconstruct his business again at his age or her age, having a lot less strength and fortitude than they did when they've done it all the other times that they've faced crisis? Or do they just let it go? Okay, there are going to be some making the decision to just let it go. There are going to be others who are going to say, nope, I'm a tough old bird, I'm in it for the fight, I'll recover again. Okay, so the thing I'm just trying to introduce, and I'm not trying to give you all of the choices here, but just to let you know that there are forces going on that you've got to be able to look at the full purview of what this marketplace is all about when you're looking at what are the opportunities in the future, because here's where the opportunities are. The opportunity in any down market, is an acquisition strategy called buy, consolidate, and shed overhead. Because what happens is that the companies no longer have enough business today to support their fixed overhead. Mm-hmm. And so what's happening is they're going to lose money and lose quickly. And if they just stay independent, there's no solution for them. On the other hand, if you now look at those who fall first and you create a buying strategy that enables you to buy them at a bargain, consolidate their operation into yours, maintain their customer base, but shed their overhead. If your strategy will permit you to do that, you can build your customer base actually into the downturn in the marketplace. And buying up competition at this point in time and having a strategy and a methodology and a resource base to do that is critical to a great growth strategy for the future. Because then when the marketplace finally turns around and the market is strong again, you are perfectly positioned to take over the marketplace because you've got the capacity, you've got the infrastructure intact. You're positioned to now grow through the normal methods of growing your business, and you will have a dominant place in the marketplace. So those are the kind of strategies that we like to work with people in and help them prepare every step of that strategy so that they know they have the resources that are available to them at the moment that they need them, and that their timing is correct as to when they do what in terms of implementing that strategy.
Okay. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Gordon.
I'm just saying, so with our members, this is what we do anyway. But we need to do this for a bigger share of the public right now, because we can't let the whole infrastructure go down. We've got to have people that are ready to scoop up the resources that would be abandoned by the baby boomer who's just not wanting to take on the trials of rebuilding the company themselves, and is going to take the option of I'm just going to let it go. I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the resources or the drive to do it again.
Sure. Well, for everyone that's listening to this, I want to kind of mention three things on this. Number one, I don't know if you heard what Gordon said in the direction or fully understood what Gordon said, but let me kind of put it into perspective, and I can also give you actually some real life examples of what we did. And it's all, when I say what we did, all I did was I borrowed Gordon's philosophies and tried to replicate it the best way I could. Also, keep in mind, Gordon is giving away his essentials that he typically sells. He's not here to sell anything. The reason that everybody says, okay, why is Gordon doing this? Well, first, Gordon understands the fact that entrepreneurs are going to be the ones to fix the problem. But also, he knows that if you follow his philosophies, one of several things are going to happen. Either A, there's going to be a deal that you're going to want to bring him involved in, or there's going to be a deal where he can connect you with the different borrowing sources. And so there'll be revenues made there. The reason I am part of this unit with Gordon is, in essence, what Gordon has done is he set up a mastermind, and it's absolutely brilliant. He has the metal finishing people over on the fabrication side. He's got the collection guy that's attached to the employment industry, so he's actually getting to view what's happening in the direct hire versus a contract, but also what's happening with the debtors that are in there. So what he has done to help manage his companies through these cycles is he's in essence created a mastermind, a board, whatever you want to call it, with different people in different industries. And with this webinar where he's going to give all of the stuff, he's in essence setting up where he's going to let everybody connect and do the same thing, and in essence create these masterminds on their own to where you'll have the visibility. I can tell you that Gordon's theories work, because I acquired a magazine back in 2004 the same way. I also, the most recent purchase that we had was when we acquired Hireable's assets for our backdoor hire. We kept our own technology because we knew it was good. But Hireable had done an amazing job on client acquisition. And in my opinion, the clients and the cash flow are where the assets of today's companies are. The buildings and the infrastructure and all of that, if you heard what Gordon was saying, was you acquire the company, you get rid of all that overhead and just bring them into whatever business unit you have. You can, if they've got a superstar or a rock star, bring them in. But if you've got an accounting department, you've got a lead generation team, there's no reason to have those duplications. For Gordon's webinar that he's offering to do, instead of giving you a long link to go to my meeting, if you go to AER Collections /Gordon, Gordon, we'll have it redirected to the logon page. Once again, that's at www.aercollections with an S at the end .com /Gordon, Gordon. And that will redirect you. But what he's trying to do is to give everybody the education to where if you have a company that is in trouble, there are times, Gordon, I've been able to acquire companies that were in trouble, and it's not like I was predatorial to where we were sweeping in and giving them pennies on the dollar. We did some type of revenue share to where they were going out of business. They would have seen $0, probably personally filed bankruptcy. We were able to acquire those companies and then split the revenues going forward. Sometimes you can do that, sometimes you can't, but there are going to be some amazingly neat opportunities. And education on how to structure those deals are important. Gordon's about to give that to you for free. And visibility, knowing when to do it, because if you do it as you're descending, you may very well get slaughtered as well. So knowing when to buy is going to be, or when to just reinvest in your own business. If you don't want to acquire another company, just having that visibility. I'm excited because in this downturn, with Gordon allowing me to be part of his group, I'm going to be able to see what's happening in the lending market, what's happening in the manufacturing market, what's happening in the different markets, to where I can make decisions on hiring, rearranging people in different organizations based on that information. Because something that Gordon and I had talked about yesterday, and anybody that knows me knows I will run from politics and religion anytime somebody picks it up. And I am so frustrated at both sides because they are both pushing their own agenda and throwing so much disinformation out there to throw their own agenda, that if you buy into the rights philosophy or if you buy into the less philosophy and you become narrow vision, in my opinion, Gordon, I'm concerned for our clients because I know clients on both sides of that spectrum. And if they buy into just that wholehearted ideology and they're not truly paying attention to what's happening in business, they won't survive the downturn. I know you had some insights on that, and I know you're amazingly busy out there in California with the stuff that you're doing, and I do appreciate you joining me this morning. But what kind of ending advice can you give them? And then as far as how do you get enough information but turn the noise off? Because the noise is to me is as detrimental as what's happening with the virus.
Well, first of all, you're absolutely right. And the reason we're putting this together is business needs, and I'm going to use this word in quotation marks, needs an agnostic approach to how do they get their information. If you're getting information through any of the normal media sources, their agenda very simply is, they want to get in front of eyeballs and ears with wallets. Okay, and that's the driving goal of media. It's not to be accurate with the news; it's to get an audience. And if that means being somewhat accurate with the news, I guess they'll do that. But that's not their number one priority anymore. It was a time when it used to be. That, Edward R. Murrow, right? There was a time when the credibility of the news department was supreme. But that day is long gone, unfortunately. And the world, the media has divided us up into factions, and then they play to the faction and what the faction wants to hear. Yeah. Well, in business, you can't deal with what business people want to hear. You got to deal with what's really going on. And so by dealing directly with the people in the businesses and having our ear directly to what's going on, and creating the transparency between us and them, so that together we're all able to see the real picture and see it accurately as we can all see it from ground level, then we can put together at least some level of truth by which we can act. and act intelligently. So that's the goal here, just very simply, is to do for ourselves what we can't get the government to do for us and what we can't get the media to do for us. And also, frankly, if you're in a small to mid-sized business, you're really not on anybody's top priority list anymore. You're just not. You're in it on your own. And so here we all are in it on our own together, and let's together see if we can create meaningful information and strategies that we can act by. The ability for me to give too much information or advice on a very short meeting like this is not that great, because this is a complex set of issues. There is no simple answer that you can simply snap your fingers and say, okay, now if you just do this, you're going to be fine. So that's why we broke it up, not just even to one webinar, but into a series that's going to happen. Right now it's set to be monthly, but we're going to switch it to once every 2 weeks, because too much is happening too fast to have it over that length of time. And so the idea here is to within every 2-week period to really take stock of where we are, really adjust, look at what we've learned and how do we apply it to the future. But one of the things that I'm going to be supplying personally to the process is, and you have been a great student of this, because you've used it to acquire companies, because my Monica is how do you buy a business with little or none of your own cash? So it's how do you fully leverage the purchase? And there's always a way to do it between the assets, the cash flow, and the alternative resources that are out there that will facilitate and cooperate with you. And sometimes back with a little seller financing and a little creatively what you did with the seller, sharing revenues into the future with them as opposed to giving them upfront purchase price. There's always a way to construct this where you don't need the capital. You need the strategy. You need the know-how, the method. And then if you're a good entrepreneur, you very quickly learn and know how to execute that. And we even provide the execution strategies as well as to how do you actually physically do it. So, and then on these webinars too, I'm going to be inviting key resources, lenders, investors, people who you're going to want to know and be in connection with and have some exposure to, so that when the turnaround happens, you know where to go for the cash. You've already got a line into them. You know what industries they like, what kind of things they'll fund, and whether or not your business would be right for that particular source. We're going to be looking at all the people who are the functionaries in everything that you need to do to thrive during this situation, so that you not only know what to do, but you're actually even being introduced to people who do it. Sure. And so we're bringing all the pieces together, knowledge and execution ability, so that by participating in this with us, you're going to be positioned to not only know what to do, but to actually execute on what to do. And so
have the resources to execute if that's the path that you choose to go.
Exactly. So that's it. And the best, I guess, advice that I could give anybody right now is to watch these two factors and how the government policy blends them. The first is, how do you protect people's health and life? And the second is, how do you shorten the destructive period of the economy here? How do you create that short leg to the V so that it gets to it quickly and back up? And the interplay between those two needs right now is going to determine not only the length of these cycles, but what the cycles will actually look like. And we'll be on top of that every step of the way with these webinars, because where those turns happen, how the policy is affecting those two realities is going to determine what to do and when to do it and how to do it.
Oh, and basically to kind of put it in, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gordon, but I guess in my simplistic mind frame, what you're going to do is you've in essence put together your mastermind group that you're going to be dependent on as you navigate your way through it. What you're going to do is you're going to share that same insight from those same people with the masses and the other business industries. And that's I'm assuming basically just a very basic overview. That's what's going to be happening on these webinars. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And there's both a profit motive and an altruistic motive to what I'm doing. And I'll share both of them with you because I have a high belief in transparency. Okay, you mentioned it earlier. There's lots of ways to make money by what I'm doing. Obviously, the bigger my audience here, the more resources I can reach out to, the more things that are going to be taking place that will ultimately come back and involve me. So I've learned a long time ago that the bigger I build my network, the more deals I have access to, the more resources I have access to, the better things happen for me. So I'm going to be just fine. But the other side of this, which is the altruistic side, is actually not so altruistic. That's also selfish. You can't recover to a great economy on your own, right? I could be the smartest guy on the planet. We could do the best deals on the planet. But if at the end of the day, I haven't got any restaurants to go to, or I don't have any movie theaters that are open for business, or I don't have any operas that are taking place, whatever my preferences are, or there are no sports games happening because the infrastructure has been destroyed, then that's not to my advantage. So I have an advantage, number one, in promoting things in a way that I will ultimately see my share of what's opportunities there are. But equally as important to me is I want to recover to a world that looks very much like the one I just left, where I have access to any and everything that I would want to spend the money on, and that there's a host of people around me that are happy, healthy, and prosperous, so that we're all create this incredible mutual win together. So I'm looking for the win on both sides, Wilson.
Well, I'll kind of sum it up in this, and then I'll let you jump back into your day. You're in essence sharing your hand sanitizer, because the guy that goes in and buys the entire shelf and the 85 cases that may be at Publix fails to see that having those 85 cases in his house may keep his hands clean, but it doesn't keep the thing from spreading, and we've got to keep the thing from spreading to make everybody safe. So giving back and not taking as much off the counters of hand sanitizer. You're in essence giving back your wealth of knowledge, and you've always been a very gracious guy and in giving back with your knowledge. And I know there's two people that I can point to in my professional life that literally changed my life. My two mentors, one is Jay Abraham, which I know you've worked very close with Jay on different things. Jay is a marketing genius from a business and operation and expansion, and just how to navigate business with you do this, you do this, you do that. It's more just, it's a mindset, but it's also some high level step-by-step stuff. You certainly have made as big of an impact for my life and my family as anybody else. And so I personally do thank you on that. And, and as I run into my own uncertainty, I find myself running back to you to try to find that same guidance. And so I do appreciate you once again allowing me to kind of tag along and learn what you've got. And I'm excited because we're going to be able to offer that to the masses. The staffing and recruiting industry, the reason I'm doing this, I have absolutely no direct money motivation other than the fact of I want to make sure that the staffing and recruiting industry stays as healthy and as solid as it is, because Adams, Evans, and Ross, backdoor hires, recruiting and staffing solutions all have one thing in common. We rise or fall by the employment, by the staffing, employment, and recruiting industry. That's our only industry, and that will be our only industry. So my incentive for this is to make sure that just our clients, our industry, have the tools that they need to be successful. Gordon, I appreciate once again you guys you joining me, and for everybody listening to this podcast now, if you go to aercollections.com/Gordon, Gordon, sign up for the free webinars, and the insight that this will give you, it gets you out of this echo chamber, because I'm part of a group of different staffing and recruiting industries. And I think it's good to ask your peers hey, I'm a recruiter, I'm a staffing firm, what are you seeing? Things along those lines. But you're almost in an echo chamber because you're in the same industry, though it may be a little diversified because of the different markets. This will give you the ability to see over and hear what's happening in the lending markets, see what's happening in the manufacturing market, see what's happening in the collection markets, and it will give you some insight. And then along with some of the strategies that Gordon will share, it will let you know when to acquire another company, or you may be that boomer that's not wanting to go through it. Gordon can basically walk you through how to get the biggest and best return on your lifelong investment. Gordon, any parting words before we wrap it up, and I'll let you get back to your day.
Well, again, this is something you may or may not want to discuss here, but just like the strategizing that you and I were doing together about collections right now. In other words, there's a reality of people, okay? When they're afraid, when they're scared, they hold on to their money. So you've got perfectly good companies, at least for the moment, which are not necessarily paying their bills. And so you have a lot of clients that you're the collection folks for. And as a result, they're seeing their need for collections elevate. But they're also aware of the times, and you don't want to press the clients too much for collection. You won't want to damage your rapport with them. But by the same token, they need to collect their money because you've got to survive. So how do you do that? And if you look at and develop an understanding of what's going on, that the client is not paying because they don't have the money, or they're not paying, or they're not paying because they're afraid and they want to hold on to their money because they don't know what they're going to need that cash for at an potentially existential level. So the thing that we're going to be doing with you is hooking you together with a financing resource that then can take the companies that are not paying because they're hoarding their cash and create an alternative financing vehicle for them, so that not only can we make sure that they've got the money to pay the receivable to your client or the payable to your client, but they're also going to have now more money to get away from their fear level, so that they know they've got a nice cushion of cash to ride through this with. So we're going to solve two problems at the same time based on the psychology of what exists today. So we're taking the reason they're not paying today, and we're creating a reason for them to actually pay you, because they're going to get more money in the process when we give them the combined solution.
And that's absolutely key, because I have a lot of clients, and we even have some competitors. They say, well, gee, do you guys go out and break legs and all that? And that's that's not how we operate. But basically, it would be very stupid, because at that point now, all you've done is literally cripple a guy that can't pay you. There are times where you have to sue somebody. There are times that you have to elevate up, but there's also more times where you have to educate that debtor on the best way to resolve the problem. And, we had a manufacturing facility before this, probably about 90 days, 120 days ago, that owed, our client probably about $60,000. They had $500,000 worth of contracts. It was predominantly with state and local governments. And we were able to connect them with a factoring company that they were able to solve their own issue. And so by solving that own issue, they paid our own client, or they paid us so we could pay our client, but they also were able to solve their operating issue. And so you guys may have resources, and I'm talking to the recruiters, I'm talking to the staffing firms. If you have resources that are drying up, or you've got a client that says, gee, I'm needing to hire more folks, but I don't have access to capital because the banks are cowards, and banks are always cowards. I know Gordon has access to alternative lenders that are you'd be surprised at how reasonable they could be. And so imagine being able to supply your potential client with a way to fund the new hire that you're going to get paid 25% of their salary, or be able to fund sticking 3 or 4 temporaries on there. And that's just one of the techniques that Gordon's going to discuss, and one of the resources that Gordon's going to give to you guys, so you can keep it in your back pocket when those times show themselves, because everybody is a consultant to their clients. And if you've got information to your clients that could help them, I want you to share it. And that's one reason why I invited Gordon here. So that's kind of a quick overview of how we're applying some of these techniques with some of our debtors, and how we're going to be hoping to mitigate is we're going to be connecting a lot of these debtors to alternative cash flow sources so they can keep our clients paid. I can tell you, we will collect far more money doing that than your local attorney suing them, and then they file for bankruptcy in 6 months and nobody gets paid. So you need to be creative, and I think Gordon's can certainly give you the tools to do it. Well, Gordon, thank you again for joining me on this. Everybody sign up for Gordon's webinar at AERcollections.com/Gordon. And Gordon, I know you and I are set to talk next week on that webinar. And once again, thank you for taking the time out of your day to visit with me, and then also so I can share it with the industry that I survive in. So I appreciate that, and thank you kindly.
Thank you, Wilson, for having me. Appreciate it.